I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:02. And before we start, I'm just going to read through a little bit so anyone who's on here knows why we're doing it remotely and then understands the protocols. For the record, my name is Michael Kehoe, and I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. I would like each member and staff, and I'll go through it, just to respond in the affirmative. First of all, Richard Golan,
Yes.
Patty Swerduck,
Yes.
Joseph Burke,
Here.
Richard Mallon,
Yeah.
and Kelly Wilbur.
Here.
So we have more than a quorum. Our staff, we have Michael Riley
Here.
and Mark Garrett.
Here.
Okay. This is a meeting that is allowed by Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. Due to the current state in the Commonwealth of the outbreak of COVID-19, in order to mitigate the virus's transmission, the governor has advised and directed us to suspend public meetings, and the governor's order suspending the requirement of open meeting law to have meetings in a publicly accessible physical location was a part thereof. We, as a public body, are allowed to and encouraged to participate remotely, and we have been doing so. We have to provide reasonable public access so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Point out that public access under the governor's order does not ensure public participation, but in this case, we will allow for public participation through the raise your hand feature. This meeting was noticed by publication, by posting in the town, and also on the website for the Conservation Commission. In both of those notices, there was a link to tonight's Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded, and everyone is participating by video conference. I would let everyone be aware of the fact that participants and other viewers can see and hear you, so that anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. You have the option to turn off your video if you're participating via a computer. All participants are respectfully requested to keep the microphones or phones muted unless recognized by the chair. This will help us reduce background noise and feedback. That being said, we're going to go now to the first order of business. It's the approval of the minutes of the meeting of May 5, 2020.
So moved.
I have a second on that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. The second order of business is the approval of the field trip reports of the May 5, 2020 meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Third, receive the minutes of the May 9th, 2020 meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That motion passes unanimously. We're now moving to our field trip reports. The first is a request for determination of applicability from Per Lothberg, wishing to remove paved and gravel parking areas and construct new parking spaces at the edge of the buffer zone and within land subject to coastal storm flowage, to include both hardscaping and landscaping around the house on land located at map 108, lot 1, which is 39 Elm Street.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Mike or Mark, you've had an opportunity to review this request on the site. What are your comments?
Yeah, Mark is going to be taking the lead on this.
Mark?
Yeah, Mike, Mr. Chair, we both have reviewed this. It is a minor amount of work. While it says hardscaping and landscaping, it actually produces impervious cover in the area, and I believe that we are both recommending approval, a negative determination.
I concur.
Any comments from the commissioners? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for negative determination.
So moved.
Second on
Second.
that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition. That passes unanimously. Number 2 is a request for determination of applicability from John Alfonso to abandon or remove the existing septic system and replace it with a 1,500-gallon H20 monolithic septic tank and a 210-foot Prisby pipe in a bed configuration within the buffer zone to a BVW. All disturbed areas will be reloamed and seeded for proper stabilization. The property's at map 60, lot 20 on 3 Nicole Megan Way. Take a motion.
Make a
to-
motion to waive the reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition? That passes unanimously. Mark, have you reviewed this request?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if you look at the plan, this is a septic upgrade on a residential lot. It's located in a lawn area. It is about as far away from the wetland and the buffer zone as they could possibly be, given the lot configuration. And we would staff would recommend a negative determination to go forward, -3.
Okay. Any comment from any of the commissioners?
Nope.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to give a negative determination to this request.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Number 3 is a request for determination of applicability from Robert and Ninabeth Butler to expand the existing home 16-foot by 28-foot with a full cellar within the riverfront area to Destruction Brook and a buffer zone to the island bank. That's map 32, lot 51. It's 688 Fisher Road. Motion to waive the reading?
So moved.
Second. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Mark, have you had an opportunity to review this request?
Yes, I have. This is a proposal to do a small addition in a porch area on an existing structure on a portion of a lot that is already developed. It's lawn area, landscape, driveway. As you look at the sketch plan, it does fall within buffer zone. It does fall within the riverfront area to the Destruction Brook, which is immediately to the, would actually be south, but looking at this diagram, it is to the right side. We have no issue with it. We would recommend a -2 on this since it is in riverfront area. It is an area subject to protection as well as regulation of the buffer zone. I would note to the commission for your knowledge that we received an email from zoning enforcement agent David Requina, and he indicated that they are going to have to go in front of ZBA for setback variances, special permit for setback variances and the like. So they still have some work to do, but that doesn't really affect what we're doing relative to the Wetland Protection Act or the bylaw. So we would recommend a -2 on this one.
Okay, any comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to afford a -2 determination on this request.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, this passes unanimously. We're going on to number 4. It's a request for an extension permit, Sabrina's Landing, map 53 and 182, lots 1-3 and 49. This is on Alice Street, and there is a DEP file number. It's 15-1948. I'll entertain a motion to read the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Mark, what's your take on this request?
Staff recommendation is to do the extension. Sabrina's Landing is, I would say, probably 75% completed. There are some homes that are still, there are some building sites that are still a little bit rough. And a real issue to both Mike and myself is that they did some work relative to their drainage, their siltation, their detention basins had been loaded with silt. They did a very poor job of managing silt. We were on top of them constantly throughout construction, and they finally got it together. But the detention basins have filled with silt, and they're going to have to be mucked out. And the detention basin, which is to the west, the northwest of the site, that one has an outflow into a wetland. And in reviewing their plans, plan of record, that outflow was supposed to move pretty smoothly down gradient through an outlet structure, which is the appropriate outlet structure for the detention basin by the order of conditions. However, they chose to berm the outlet, which is not in conformance with the plan, yet in reality was probably a good thing given the discharges that they were having into the detention basin. So no silt has ever gone into the wetland per se, but to really get a certificate of compliance, they would have to do some work to muck out the detention basins and also remove that berm so that it is consistent with the plan of record, unless they choose to amend the order, and there's never been any discussion about that. The detention basin really isn't a detention basin. It is a retention basin right now. And in talking to the applicant, they certainly want to move forward with finishing off that work consistent with the plan of record. So we would recommend to extend the order of conditions.
I think we might,
It's a 3-year period.
I think we might want to consider, if they have these issues, that they do this remediation work. When's the expiration on this? On the original certificate, when's the expiration date?
I don't have that at my fingertips, I'm sorry.
They would have required, they would have
They're ahead of the
submitted.
game here, I believe. Aren't they, Mike?
I think, yeah, they are. I think they've submitted probably, I don't remember the exact date, but I think they had another couple of months before they had to submit.
All right, well, then I'll tell you what, I'm inclined to continue this and let them muck out, the base and to rectify what they've done with the outlet after they've done that. Once they've done that and it's been verified, then we can hear this request, because I'm loath to extend when they haven't complied. I mean, this is not fair to anyone else, and it's not necessary. It's possibly going to harm the resource areas if they're just disregarding what has previously been approved and going out on a jaunt of their own or a frolic of their own. I'm not going to extend the original. They haven't even complied with it.
One of the things Mark and I have been talking about, Mr. Chair, is an as-built plan. I think that might be in order at this point. We've been eyeballing this detention basin since the very beginning of this construction. And it looks to me as though something's not quite right. And as Mark had described. And so I'm thinking that an as-built plan should be required, so we know what the situation is with the detention basin.
All right, so if I'm hearing you correctly, then we're talking about requiring an as-built, and they still have to, muck out what they should have been doing right along, right? I mean, that's not asking them to do anything that's unusual.
No,
They've-
that's-
If I could just add, I agree that they're not consistent with the finished. But I think as part of their construction, based on what they were doing and what they were not doing, probably made appropriate decisions to protect the resource area, because we've never had an issue with the resource area. It's always been internal, and they do have an active order of conditions. So I guess from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, they could, let that thing fill up and muck it out as their last effort. And I believe that's what they're doing here. But I do agree with Mike that I'm pretty certain that we are on point with what's going on with the basin. But here again, we're eyeballing it. It's not surveyed. So I have no problem with them submitting an interim as-built plan.
I think that's a reasonable request. I'll entertain, does any commissioners have any comments here? Because I'll entertain a motion to require the applicant to submit an interim as-built plan. And then after that, I would entertain a second motion to continue this until the next meeting. And the plan has to be submitted beforehand. So I don't want to continue it again. So if they don't have the plan in 5 days before the meeting, they'll also request another continuance so we can hear it and be done with this.
My question.
Mr. Chair, I think the applicant has his hand up.
Omar is muted. He needs to be unmuted.
Yeah, who's the applicant? I don't know.
Omar,
Using his hand right now.
I'll recognize Omar. I don't know your last name, so I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Can you hear me? I apologize.
No,
Having
we can hear you. Just
difficulties.
put your name, your full name. That'd be helpful.
Oh, I apologize. It's Omar Shatila. I don't know how to edit renames right there.
That's okay. As long as they got it, that's fine. Oh, you did it. Good job.
Learning as I go. This is one of my first Zoom meetings, so I apologize. So Corey Meridios from SciTech is my engineer, and we actually have an as-built plan that we can submit to the Conservation Commission. Now, the order is set to expire, I believe, on July 12th.
We'll have enough time. Our next
Okay.
meeting is June 23rd.
Okay, so I can submit that for y'all. We've kind of been battling water the whole time, and we were planning on mucking it out this past April, but with COVID going on, my contractor shut down his operations for a couple months, and they're only starting back up, so we're trying to get that going.
Okay. Well, if we can get that as built in, and I'm sure Corey can get it in very quickly, we'll have more than enough time for that as built to be reviewed. And the next meeting on the 23rd still gives you time to get the extension without having that expire.
Fantastic.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll amend what I just said to say, let's entertain a motion to continue it until the 23rd. The applicant has already promised, it says they already have the plan as interim as built and promised to have the engineer bring it in. We don't need to make that motion.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so can I have that motion, please? For
So moved.
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Omar, for your comments.
Oh, thank you.
Going on now to number 5, that's a request for a certificate of compliance. That's DEP file 15-2424, map 63, lot 11-19. That's at 37 Ventura Drive. Oh, I don't need a motion for that. Mark, any comments on this request for a certificate?
Actually, you're going to turn this one over to Mike. He actually inspected the site. He knows this one better than I do.
Okay,
yes,
Mike?
Mr. Chair, I took a look at the site yesterday, and we do have a letter from an engineer stating the work was done in compliance. I did a site inspection yesterday, and it looks fine. Looks like they did a nice job, and so I recommend the issuance of a certificate of compliance.
Have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Number 6 is a request for determination of applicability from Jose Camara to repair a substandard septic system on land located at 4 Copacut Road, map 74, lot 11-6. I'll entertain a motion, waive the reading.
So moved.
Have a
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That passes unanimously. Mark, is this yours or is this Mike's?
Yes, this is mine. Staff, excuse me. Staff has reviewed this. This is a septic system upgrade. Again, they've done the best they can. They're in the buffer zone to a man-made intermittent stream, which if you look at the plan, if you look at the plan in the lower end of the site, you can see flagging, which is the top of the inland bank to that brook. The brook then takes a right angle at Copacut Road and then runs down along the base of the bank of Copacut Road. They've done the best they can. It's next to an existing system, and we would recommend a -3 on this. It's in one area also, so they're not changing any vegetation per se.
Do any commissioners have any questions or comments?
Nope.
May I entertain a motion to issue a -3 determination on this particular request?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That passes unanimously. And the 7th field trip report is a request for certificate of compliance, DEP file 15-1714, map 33, lot 92. That's 1030 Russell's Mills Road. Mark, is this yours?
Oh, this one's Mike's.
Mike's, okay.
Yeah, I did a site inspection on it yesterday. We do have a letter from an engineer stating the work was done in compliance. It looked perfectly fine, so I recommend the issuance of a certificate of compliance.
A
So
motion.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That passes unanimously. We're now moving on to the public hearings, and our first public hearing is public hearing DEP file 15-2477, and a request for an amended order of conditions from Elizabeth Farland, who wishes to extend a previously approved limit of clearing on land located at map 128, lot 9, that's 172 Rockland Street. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That passes unanimously. And on behalf of the applicant,
Good evening. On behalf of the applicant, Corey Medeiros from SciTech. We're in here essentially the order of conditions that we are certain that we are looking to amend was to construct the house and everything that you see from the back of the house labeled tree line towards Rockland Street. Mrs. Farland is looking to clear a little bit more of or get a little bit more into the tree line. So essentially what we're proposing is it's a 30-foot shift at most. Again, it's buffer zone. It's similar to what we did in the front going from east to west. So from Rockland Street towards the rear. We're providing a minimum of 10 feet of no activity between the bordering vegetated wetland and the new proposed tree line, as you can see on the top of the plan. And we're also extending the previously approved post and rail fence that you see on the screen. That's going to go along the back of the lot, just inside the tree line, and it'll be a permanent designation of lands that people will know not to cross. Other than that, I'm open to any questions from the commission.
Mike or Mark, who has reviewed this and wants to comment on it for the commissioners?
I think we both have reviewed it at different times. If you recall, this is an extremely tight lot to begin with. And even under the old order, the extent of work was pretty site inclusive, given the state of the site. In my personal opinion, and I would to Mike on this, the proposed additional area is not going to change things dramatically, and I don't think that it would change the environmental conditions one way or another. The wetland that was delineated immediately down to the would be the south. There is a home. It's very tight quarters in through there. Mike, any additional comments?
No, I concur with Mark. I think it's a relatively minor change.
The commissioners will have any questions of the applicant's engineer or any comments to make?
No.
Is there anyone in the viewing audience on this particular project that wants to be heard? Has a question or comment? Hearing none, and I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, that passes unanimously. Commissioners, what would be your pleasure on this application?
Make a motion for a standard order of conditions according to the plan submitted.
Second.
We have a motion seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition. This passes unanimously. And Corey and Mrs. Farland, thank you for your patience. I know you were here last meeting.
That's all right. It was entertaining anyway to see the machinations of the Conservation Commission. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Take care. Second public hearing is a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2514. It's a notice of intent from Arnoldus and Jeanette Giedrimus, who wish to construct a 17-foot by 36-foot in-ground pool with associated pool apron, grate, and utilities, and to construct a roof drain and under drain system within the existing yard area, as well as land subject to coastal storm flow, buffer zones to coastal beach and land under the ocean. The land is located at map 124, lot 7 at 41 Mosier Street in Dartmouth.
Make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There's no opposition to that. It passes unanimously. And on behalf of the applicant. Alan, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. Hi. For the record, my name is Alan Haru, and we had requested, have requested a postponement of this public hearing to give the attorneys for both the applicant Arnoldus and Jeanette Giedrimus and the 4 southerly abutters that reside along Pearl Street an opportunity to continue to negotiate to try to ameliorate any concerns that they have about the access to the site using Pearl Street. So without opening the hearing, I hesitate to say too much further because we have agreed to postpone and continue to try to work with the abutters. I know my client Arnoldus and Jeanette have met with the abutters, and I think they've had some good meetings. So it's up to you whether you want me to open the hearing and present the project and continue the hearing, or just postpone the hearing. So we have decided to request a postponement of the hearing for 2 weeks until the 23rd, if that's okay with the commission.
I think that's the right action. And I will also note for the record that Richard Golan has recused himself and would not participate in this at all, including tonight's and the previous time when it was on the agenda. So Mr. Golan has recused himself. But that being said, I think it's appropriate to entertain a motion to postpone this public hearing until our next scheduled public hearing on June 23rd, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, could I just comment real quickly? Just for the record, Alan did submit that request to continue. I believe it was yesterday, fairly late. We received it in the office. So this is not a last minute thing. They thought ahead on this one.
Is
Okay,
this,
I appreciate that, Mark.
is a continuance, this is a continuance that we're voting on, correct?
Postponement.
It would be a postponement because we never opened it, technically didn't open it.
Okay,
Right.
so did you make a motion?
I didn't, I just suggested one, a motion to postpone until the 23rd of June, 2020.
So moved.
Have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That passes unanimously. This has been postponed until June 23rd, 2020.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 2 is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2510. It's a notice of intent for Jason and Giselle Hutchins, who wish to construct a timber pier on land located at map 107, lot 19 on Smith Neck Road.
Motion to waive the reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That passes unanimously. The applicant has requested continuance to the June 23rd, 2020 meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition. The motion passes unanimously. Number 4 is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2478. It's an amended order of condition request from Pascomanset Land Company LLC, who wishes to demolish existing structures and infrastructure and redevelop several parcels for various commercial uses. A wetland road crossing, grading, and utilities in the buffer zone on land located at 68 lots 33, 34, 35, and 36, and map 63 lots 11 and 11-4. That's 461 and 479 Faunce Corner Road. Motion to waive the reading?
Motion to waive the reading?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, please.
Yes.
I just want to clarify something for the commissioners. The next 4 public hearings are all related to each other. And the way they've been ordered is that the amended order of conditions, which we've just waived the reading to, is kind of site comprehensive to include all of the lots. There are some modifications to the roadway, to drainage, to wetlands replication and the like. There is a drainage review by our peer, Gus Raposo, which is underway and has not been completed yet. And so we took the amended order and put that first, so, since it governs the entire site. We then did public hearing number 5, 6, and 7, chronological order, lots 1, 2, and 3 within this overall development. So I just wanted to clarify that 5, 6, and 7 are directly dependent on number 4, and they've been ordered that way. The other thing I'd like to bring to the attention of the commission, since I have the floor right at the moment, is under public hearing number 7, there is a typo. The client or the applicant is Pascomanset Land Company LLC, not Ram Faunce Corner Development LLC. That was a typo that was just on the agenda. So just take note of that as we move through this evening.
That's number 6.
I hope everybody understands what I said. If you have any questions, I'd entertain them.
I want to have a question. Number 6 also has Ram Faunce Corner. Is that one correct?
That's correct. That's correct. It just got carried over. That was the only one that's not Pascomanset.
Okay. You had said number 7, but it's really number 6 that you're.
No, it's number 7. Well,
Yeah.
Patty.
Number
Seven
7
also
said,
Ram Swans Corners.
it said Ram, and it should say Pascomansit.
The lots are all under the same ownership.
Well, I noticed as well that, 6 and 7 don't have a DEP file number. Is that still true?
They all do. We have DEP file numbers on 4, 5, 6, and 7, and also 8.
Okay. All right, so we've read that. We've just heard the point that Mark gave us. I guess the question is now, do we just go forward on the first one, hear it out, and then hear it out individually for each one? Or I can call all of them and just let the applicant's engineer give us the presentation on each. I just don't want, I don't want it to be muddled, though. That's the concern I have. And I don't want to hear the whole story on the other ones all over again. So,
That's why we ordered it the way it is. I think that will allow for clarification.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, a little bit of background. We had some pre-application meetings in Town Hall with other departments as well, the Planning Board and Building. And the decision was made to handle primarily the stormwater issues and the roadway issues with one order of conditions, the amended order of conditions. And that way you get it being reviewed in a comprehensive way. The other lots contribute drainage to the or the amended order of conditions, but it's being reviewed as an overall drainage plan, drainage concept. And so that's why it has been structured this way. It seemed to make the most sense, but I think each one of the other hearings should stand on their own and have their own presentation.
all right, I mean, that makes sense as well. I just don't want the applicant's engineer to regurgitate history and facts on each single one if they're the same. If they're not the same, by all means do so. But we'd be here until 11 o'clock if we're going to go through the whole, what we do on 1, to do the whole thing again on 2, and then on 3, and then on 4. So to me, with that note of caution to whoever's going to speak on behalf of the applicant, with the subsequent meetings, you don't have to go back and revisit the history of it. Start with the things you want us to know that are specific to that application.
And Mr. Chair, one other point, I'm sharing my screen right now, I think, as everyone can see. But if the applicant's representative would prefer to share his or her screen, then they can go ahead and do that. So I think that's up to the applicants. I believe they have the ability to be able to share their screen, but we'll figure that out as we go here.
All right, well, that being said, I think we've already had a motion to waive the reading that was passed, I believe.
Yes.
And so now I would ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to give their narrative on public hearing number 4.
Hello, good evening. Jonathan Schuster from Oxbow Associates. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. I believe you should be able to see me as well. So yes, I promise to keep this very streamlined and to not repeat myself too much.
Second, Mike O'Reilly did offer you to share your screen if you don't want to use his. Would you prefer to share your screen?
That is possible. I think with my current setup, it may be best if we just sort of go through the plans and I'll call out a page number and Mike can go to that page as needed. That might
we can do that. I have all the pages loaded, so
yeah,
just let me know which page you want to go through, Jonathan.
Sure, great. Yeah. Actually, we can start off on page 19 of the 20-page plan set. I think that gives a good overall view of the site. So yeah, quite a lot. So we have a 20-page plan set, and then we have a separate drainage plan, and I'll also be referring to a wetland replication plan, a 1-page plan specific to this lot. So yeah, so getting into the meat and potatoes of this is an amended order of conditions. The original order was issued to Borrego Solar for a solar development east of the development you see proposed here. And as Mike and Mark mentioned, we took this avenue in coordination with them of requesting an amended order since this is all contained on one lot. But I just would like to point out that the stormwater and everything for the solar is totally separate. And just in case I forget to mention it, two items that are associated with the solar is the extension of a gravel access road east off the terminus of the paved road that you see on the plan in front of you as an access. And there's also a conduit that's going to be run through the wetland crossing, which I'm going to get to, that'll run over there. But really, I'm not going to be talking at all about the solar unless there's specific questions on that. In terms of the resource areas on the site, there's BVW that was delineated and memorialized by the prior application for the rear resource areas on the site. Towards the frontage, as you go west towards Fonts Corner Road, we had an ANRAD filed, and I believe the application refers to that reference number. So basically all the resource areas we're working with have been memorialized and reviewed and approved. We are dealing with a wetland crossing of an intermittent stream as well as the BVW. So we do, I will be speaking about bank that will be altered or temporarily impact as well. So hold me to that in case I gloss over that. In terms of buffer zone impact, so this is a commercial development. If we look towards the right of this plan, there's a large commercial structure totally outside of buffer zone, but we have detention basins for a comprehensive drainage plan that includes the front 3 lots, which we'll be talking about in subsequent filings. And this is a gravity fed system or a gravity operated system. So all the drainage for those front lots, which we'll be talking about later tonight, happen here towards the rear of the property. There are 2 point discharges, one towards the east of that rear development and one towards the west. And those point discharges will make sure that all the water that's originally going to each wetland system remains in that wetland system. It'll be held in those ponded areas and discharged slowly following storm events. And I will point out that Mr. Zach Gless is on the line to speak to specific drainage questions as they come up. So he can chime in if you have specific questions about that, if I fail to answer it. I'm just talking a little bit about the site. There's a history of farming and land use and grazing. There are existing structures for this lot we're talking about right now. There's one existing structure that's kind of smack dab on fill in the middle of the wetland. We are proposing to raise that structure, and that is in essence historic fill in a wetland. So the fill that we're proposing for this project, which amounts to about a little over 4,767 square feet. So we're under that 5,000 cap. To compensate for that, we're proposing a 7,000 square foot wetland replication. So again, you can see the access coming off Fonts Corner Road. We're proposing that access that'll become a wetland crossing to reach that back area. In terms of buffer zone impacts, we are talking about a net increase of 35,921 square feet of novel impervious in buffer zone. This all arises from the access road and from the parking lots that you see. The parking lot that is north of the access road is a supplemental, it's supplementary parking for lots in the frontage. It doesn't matter too much in terms of conservation and you folks, but I figured I'll point that out. Let's see, go to a different page of this plan. So just talk, again, I touched briefly on the history of the site. If you refer to the narrative, you can see, a plant list. There is a heavy load of invasives in some of these overgrown fields. But for the most part, we're developing in either, young second growth pine dominated forest, or it's a kind of an overgrown field. And there are the different, basically those different habitat types we have tried to describe in the narrative, as well as in the prior ANRAD when we actually memorialize this delineation. I'll point out, importantly, that we're proposing a sewer line off of Ventura Drive. So if you look towards the bottom of, I guess you still have that page up, page 19, there's a sewer line proposed off Ventura, and there's another NOI that we've recently been doing work on, which is a restoration of wetland and upland areas due to recent disturbance on this lot. So I believe that Mike and Mark have inspected this restoration. We tried to get it done as soon as we could. We have some lovely native plantings in there, but basically we wanted to tidy that up before we move ahead with these projects, was the strategy that the town instructed us to engage in. Just to prevent me from rambling on, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Again, I'll be addressing the other lots to the west that are along Fonts Corner Road in series, but I'm sure you'll have specific questions related to the drainage or other. One thing I'll mention is we are proposing a box culvert that is 8 feet wide by 2 feet tall to replace a 2-foot reinforced concrete culvert that is existing. Actually, Mike, if you could zoom in on the wetland crossing area there, that would be good. Basically, the existing culvert is 45 feet long. The proposed is 48. So if you take both sides of the bank, we're dealing with 6 linear feet of bank impact. But I'll put an asterisk next to that because currently you have, if you're a wild animal, let's say walking along this stream, you hit that culvert and really you have nowhere else to go. You have to cross the existing cart road that's built on fill through the wetland. In the proposed conditions, there will be a shaded covered bank to be had under the entire length there. So we are talking about a net improvement just in terms of wildlife habitat value, and of course, trying our best to address the stream crossing standards, which is a huge net improvement over existing conditions. So I think bank impact shouldn't be a huge concern here. And of course, we're replicating at much greater than 1-to-1 in terms of bordering vegetated wetland. Mike, could you pull up the replication plan? If you have that handy, and I'll speak briefly about that and then let you guys answer questions.
I may not have the replication plan. I thought it was part of the plan sheet that I emailed myself today. So I don't believe I have the plan sheet that shows.
I'll just verbally go over that real quick. If you want to just zoom in on that part of the site up in the north there. Yeah, that shaded part. So we're proposing 25 trees, 80 shrubs, and 30 ferns to be planted in this area after an excavation takes place. So we're going to be bringing the grade down, kind of bowling it out to about 6 to 12 inches below seasonal high groundwater at the deepest place. So this is currently an upland area, and we'll be creating this wetland replication. Access for machinery to do this will be obviously from south to north, so machinery will cross over the existing access and then track north, probably in the locus of the supplemental parking lot to just limit disturbance to the site generally. I can certainly answer more questions about this replication if you have them. I think it's a good plan, and part of the plan is to coordinate with the Conservation Office as we get more details, we get into it, and we can provide specific grades and depths of excavation if that's desired. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys for questions you may have.
Patty, you have a question?
Just one question about, is it adjacent to an existing wetland or is it just out there on its own?
It is adjacent. So that's part of a massive wetland system. So basically there's this hourglass shape you see on the plan. Oh, he's leafing through there. But
yeah, there is a cross section.
All right. Sometimes
we do.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have details on this. There's honestly so many plan sheets here that it's hard even for me to navigate. If you count the drainage plans, we're into the high 20s of plan sheets. So there's there's a lot of information to digest here, but yes, this will be adjacent. There'll be erosion control put in at the limit of the existing wetland, and then we'll be conducting this excavation, and there's going to be some oversight, consultant involved to make sure that the plants that go in are appropriate, and we'll be coordinating with the town as well.
I see it. I see it now. Thank you.
Mark or Mike, whoever wants to speak, I'd like to hear your comments on your take of the application.
I'll open mic if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Mark.
I think that they've done, the overall is I think they've done a really good job in terms of the total context in avoiding what they can and improving some not so great conditions out there. Do have a couple of questions which I'd like to float to Jonathan if I could. In reading, unfortunately the commissioners don't have it, but I do. In reading the wetland replication plan in your notes, I noticed that, and I won't detail the reading because it's quite lengthy. I thought that the tree and shrub specimens were a little small. I'd like you to consider looking at maybe slightly larger specimens. I realize it's what's available at nurseries and the like, but for shrubs, I like, minimum 3-gallon buckets. And for trees, I like a minimum of 1.5 inch dBA caliber trunks. I think what you were proposing was a little bit smaller than that. If you want to speak to that, I have a couple other things I wanted to mention, but speak to that. Go ahead.
Sure, I take your point that, in a lot of instances, bigger is better, especially when you're talking about trees and, heavy deer browse and survivorship of plantings. I will say that, having those smaller plantings affords you the ability to, we're going to be tracking their survivorship if the commission, wills that. But we can certainly, up the number of plantings or more plantings. And I think, in ongoing conversations with the project team, we can certainly adjust that. So I don't see a problem with that. Keep in mind that there may be existing trees that are on the periphery of the site that will kind of be easing up to not impact the root zones too badly. There's not actually a ton of trees out there, but most of the existing vegetation will be obliterated by the excavation. And then again, we're going to be putting some clean, nice loam down to take those new plantings and increase survivorship. So I take your point. We can see about increasing the size and come up with a different plan and show it to you.
What might be helpful, and this was a comment that I had, was, and I think you alluded to it earlier in your presentation, we don't really have a planting layout here. I mean, in my other life, I'm a consultant. I think I know what you're going to do out there. And I appreciate your comments about mature trees and destroying roots and the like. Maybe a little bit more detail as to the layout of that as we move forward through this process might be a good idea. And maybe if you have to stick with smaller specimens, maybe you up the numbers a little bit. As a sidebar, I would like to say to the commissioners, since we're talking about wetland replication, that replication that Jonathan referred to on the site to the south where the sewer line is going through, I believe I speak for Mike and myself when I say that while it was kind of crimped up to the very end, they did a great job in that planting. It looks great out there. So the commissioners should feel comfortable with that restoration as it is in the ground.
Yeah, I did an inspection yesterday, and it looks very good.
Jonathan, the other comments, and Mike and I had quite a lengthy discussion on this. Mike, can you get us to sheet 10 of 17, please? Can you blow that up a little bit so that we
Yep.
can hear a
I
little
know where, I know where we're going.
bit? I know you know where we're going.
I don't know where you're going. I'll find out.
Jonathan, I think I know what is trying to be accomplished here. I think we know what is trying to be accomplished here, but I'm not sure it's clearly being shown on this plan. And you might want to think about improving this. I'm following the flow here, and if we look to the lower left, we have that first forebay. And the way I read the bottom elevation of that, it's 145.75. And we have a series of spillways, gravel spillways that discharge into that. And I believe that the lower ends of that are 145.75. Is that a correct interpretation?
I see where you're looking. I see the 4-bay elevation in 145.75. What was the last part you asked?
You have 145.75 next to two of the spillways.
Yes, I see that.
Starting into the 4-bay, okay? We really don't have a lot of detail on what's happening in going from the 4-bay into the cells, which are in the center of the screen, the rounded area. And as Mike and I understand it, the discharge would go into the cell to the left, which has a bottom elevation of 144, then would go through spillway to the next cell, 143, and on down to the 141, and then either infiltrate or discharge to the wetland. One of the things that was a bit confusing is that each of these cells are divided by berms. And as it's depicted on the plan, it just looks like the bottom elevations of each cell are equivalent to the berm elevations to the left, and it just looks like a sheet flow down to that bottom cell. I do know that you have some elevated spot grades, which to me, as I read this plan, look like dimples on that berm. On the first cell and down below. I'm thinking what you're trying to do is contain water in the first one. It would spill over into the second one, but it should be segregated, then on to the next and on to the next. I think the grading depictions on this plan are a little bit confusing. And if it were to be built by a contractor, I'm not sure that they would understand this plan as good as a contractor would be. I just, we're concerned about this. And also, we were talking, this plan appears to be a little inconsistent with the detail.
Yeah, it is.
With the detail sheet actually shows berming, where the bottom elevations of each cell are segregated by a bit of elevation, small as it may be. I think it's about 6 inches, but nonetheless it's there. So that was just a question we had about that. If we go to sheet 12 of 19, which is the other large detention basin. Mike, if you could blow that one up too. This one seems a little bit more consistent with what you're trying to do, because you have a bottom elevation of 149. Well, no, this one actually is the same thing, because you have spot grades. You don't have like a contour. Seeing a contour that should go around each of those cells. Not to go into the hairy details again. This one is consistent with your detail. The other one was not. And we just had questions on this. And again, these are just observations by our part. We have not gotten the report from our drainage consultant, so we don't exactly know where he stands on that. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, or the engineer. I think you said you had somebody there who was going to speak to drainage.
Yeah, Zach, do you want to handle that if you're on?
Sure. My name is Zach Less. I'm from Existing Grade. I'm one of the design engineers on the site. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so there is a bit of a plan clarity that would need to happen on these. And what we can do is we can add in the half-foot contours to really try and depict what's the intent there. But as you explained, the intent is correct to have a 6-inch berm to separate each one of those cells so we can follow the existing grade as it goes down and allow each cell to do infiltration, what it can do before it spills into the next cell. So we can definitely add in those half-foot contours to fully clarify what's going on there.
I mean, you understand what I'm saying, right, Zach?
Oh, yes, yep.
I know what you're trying to do, but as I'm looking at this picture, I'm seeing a very nice sheet flow of water with a couple of islands in it. That's what I'm saying. And I don't.
Yeah, no, we can definitely add in that half-foot and grade in those little riprap swales in between so that it's a little bit more clear on how that water is intended to get from the higher cells down to the lower ones.
That was
if I
my
could-
question.
And if I could jump in here,
Yeah, on the spillways too.
go ahead. No, what I was going to say is there are spillways that are shown between the cells, and there's no detail on those spillways. It looks to me, if I were to construct this, it looks to me like the either end of the spillway is bottom elevation of the of what is supposed to be an infiltration basin, and so we need some detail on that. Otherwise, there isn't going to be any water held for infiltration.
Sure, we can definitely provide a detail in the detail sheet showing exactly how those will be constructed to, again, retain water where we can before allowing it to spill into the next cell. So
That sounds good.
Jonathan, I had one other question. Referenced that parking area, that surplus parking area to the north of the road. And in looking at the plan, sheet 19 of 19, the overall, I noticed to the east of that parking area is a large upland area that is in fact outside of wetlands and buffer zones. Is there a future plan for development of that piece that would be between the parking area and the hammerhead? And if so, has that drainage, that future drainage, been accounted for in this existing drainage system?
This is Zach again from Existing Grade. I can speak to that. So we have taken into consideration for that pond that would be to the east of Lot 4, the one in the rear, to have additional flow in the future if there was ever to be a development there, that pond has been designed to account for additional flow that may potentially come with a future development in that area. So there has been some future design considerations in that pond.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and some observations as well through you, Mr. Chair.
Please.
And I'd like you to elaborate on the erosion and sedimentation control. There is an erosion control plan, but I think that this is a large development, and some of the details are, I think, a little bit unclear on the erosion control, particularly during construction. So if you could elaborate a bit on how you're going to handle the erosion control during construction.
Sure. Yeah. So I think you do have up the master erosion control plan, and I do believe that it should address a lot of concerns here. And obviously, there's extra sensitivity given in the proximity of the wetland crossing. But yeah, in terms of specific concerns you may have, are you saying that more substantial erosion control materials would be needed, larger filter mitts or more silt fence, or just you want a little bit more specificity about certain areas?
No, I just wanted more of a description, and correct me if I'm wrong if I'm reading it. The two ponds are proposed to be only partially excavated and to be 12 to 18 inches, I believe, above the proposed bottom. And during construction, the ponds will be used as sedimentation control ponds. And then once the binder pavement is down and the stormwater system is functioning, then the ponds would be excavated out to their final grade. Is that
Zach, would you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. That would be the intent, to use them as, again, temporary sedimentation basins during construction. Then once construction is done, to complete them. But I mean, we could definitely provide more clarification where needed on that.
okay? I think that covers it. Another question. I think that Jonathan, I think you've already addressed this. That the new culvert is going to meet the stream crossing standards for DEP, correct?
It meets the stream crossing standard for width as we've calculating it, which is you take the bank full width of the stream, which I believe is 5.9 feet based on its flow and characteristics, and you multiply by 1.2.
1.2.
We're exceeding that with an 8-foot wide culvert, at least in that parameter.
Okay, that's good. The sewer line connecting to Ventura Drive, that is very close to wetland, very tight on the wetlands. How would you propose to not impact the wetlands during construction? Obviously, the easiest way is to use the same technique you did for the restoration work, which would be to work from the adjacent property. Has that been arranged yet? Because I'm concerned about the impact of the installation of the sewer line, during construction.
Well, one thing I'll point out, and I think your point is a good one, that if everything were neat and tidy and access were available from the adjacent lot, that that could, in a sense, work. I don't know if that's been secured for this part of the project at this time. I will point out that there is a wooded, brushy area on the very southeastern corner of that lot. So there already is clearing that needs to happen to get that access to the street there anyway. So you're going to be blazing a trail no matter what. And my impression, and Zach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or if Ken is on, I'm not sure if he's on, that we would be we can accomplish this being on the site, taking proper precautions with erosion control put in place ahead of time, and just keeping that limit of disturbance very limited for this sewer line, but on the lot proper.
Just one question, another observation. The additional parking, the 29 spaces that are to the north of the road, is that a planning board requirement, or is that something that's just extra for potential future use?
My impression is I believe it satisfies an actual requirement, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. We can get back to you with the specifics on why that's there specifically.
Well, I would just hate to see it there if it's not necessary.
I believe it is necessary. So we're going to get to it in just a little bit. Lot 1 is a proposed recreational marijuana facility. And I believe that supplemental parking will serve that, as well as other lots. So there needs to be some substantial parking, and this accomplishes it, putting it on lot 4.
That is what I remember from our discussions with the planning board as well. And I just have one other observation. The detention pond, the large detention pond, even the other small one, why not put solar over those detention basins? That's a lot of space and it's wide open. And this isn't something that really a conservation commission issue necessarily, but you have this whole area where you could put solar over it. And it wouldn't affect the function of the ponds really in any significant way. Just an observation.
Interesting.
I have been encouraging people to put solar over detention ponds because otherwise it's kind of wasted space.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Team can discuss it.
So I'm all set.
Commissioner, have any comments or questions at this time? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to be heard on this application? Any hands raised? We're still waiting for our drainage consultant's review. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, I spoke with Gus Raposo today. He's about 75% done with his review, and he said he would get a comment letter to us likely by the end of the week.
Okay, so if we were to continue it until our next meeting, which is the 23rd, that would be sufficient time
Yeah, I
for
believe so.
comments to be in and for the applicant and applicant's representative to have a chance to look at them and to respond.
I believe so, yes.
Jonathan, would that be your understanding as well?
Yes, I think that would give us a perfect amount of time to, address certain things that come up tonight, review Mr. Raposo's review as well. So that seems like a reasonable time frame for all parties.
Okay. That being said, I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to our next scheduled public hearing on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 at 7 p.m.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. We're now going on to public hearing number 5. It's public hearing DEP file 15-2515. A notice of intent from Pascamanset Land Company LLC wishing to demolish existing structures and infrastructure to construct a recreational marijuana facility and parking lot, grading and utilities in the buffer zone on land located at map 68, lot 33, and that would be 479 Fons Corner Road. I entertain a motion to waive the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Second on the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And on behalf of the applicant.
Hello again, Jonathan Schuster, Oxbow Associates on behalf of the applicant. I'll just get right into it. So we're proposing a recreational marijuana facility. In terms of buffer zone impacts, we've depicted the 100-foot buffer there, and you see that the northeast portion of the building, as well as much of the parking, is within that buffer. And you can see that towards the wetland, there is a retaining wall and some grading that we're putting in. If you, Mike, if you could please go to page 3, I'll just very briefly touch on the existing conditions of the site. Page 3 of the plan set. Again, this particular wetland line was memorialized in an ANRAD filing, and we received that ORAD. That was a couple years ago. And that's the F series, the flags that you see there. And if you could just zoom in a little bit, you can see that there are 3 existing structures. There was a single family home with 2 barns that was there. And, so in terms of our calculations of buffer zone impact, we are factoring in that we're removing some impervious, but putting in a lot more. That totals 10,971 net new square feet of impervious in buffer zone. As I said, however, the drainage system, the comprehensive system that we talked about in the previous hearing, does address this lot, and it captures it. And for every storm event, we have a net reduction in rate and volume of runoff from the site, and it meets those specifications. This is another site where, there's an original home there. There was some agricultural fields. There's a lot of non-native vegetation and actually a lot of anthropogenic debris. If you kind of just walk off in the woods, you'll find piles of things. So it's a semi-disturbed site that's renaturalized over the last decades. And again, if you want to go to the page you were on before, Mike, and we will just talk a little bit about the facility. Great. And as you can see, there's sort of a through road that's required. So that the main access coming off Fons Corner Road, but as you follow through, you'll see that that there's another entry or exit that dumps out onto the access road, which is technically lot 4, which is off of Fons Corner Road as well. and you can see the grading there. So again, not a whole lot more I can say before we get into questions. One thing I will point out in terms of the solar that I mentioned on lot 4 is there is an electrical conduit that's being run in, that's coming in at the north end of the site, I believe on poles, and then immediately goes to a conduit. And you can see that dotted line of that electrical line that's then going to run along the road across the wetland crossing to what we had already discussed. So I just wanted to point that out. So with that, I'm sure you may have some engineering or design questions. I'll just turn it over to you guys.
Mark, again, I assume that you've had a chance to review this and
Yes, I have, and my comments will be somewhat similar on all the next hearings. You know, putting in, you know, fairly large facilities, commercial facilities in an area, in a site that was largely agricultural and residential back in the day. It's in keeping with the current demographic, if you will, of Fawns Corner Road between Interstate 195 and Old Fall River Road. I think they've done a reasonably good job of trying to contain things as best they can, given the amount of development they're doing. One thing that both Mike and I noticed is that they have allowed for, I believe it's 15-foot of buffer for most of the site. There is some regrading. There are some retaining walls in the lower portion. But if you look at the plan, you can see that the eastern side of this particular recreation marijuana facility, if you go to the extreme edge up to the wetlands, you can see that they have left a no activity area. The only real concerns I have relative to closing this hearing at this point is that this is all subject to the overall stormwater site stormwater design that we talked about in the last hearing. So my recommendation would be to continue this until such time as we close out the overall site drainage, which I think is what we've been talking about.
thank you, Mark. Do any commissioners have any questions?
Nope.
Did you say something? No?
Nope.
Anyone in the audience wishing to be heard? Okay, I'm somewhat in agreement with Mark. I think one of the early comments that were made before we got started with the previous public hearing was that that one was the linchpin, and without the, from the applicant's standpoint, without the correct vote, the remaining applications don't fly. So I think this should continue to the next public hearing so that the peer review on stormwater has been presented to the applicant and their representatives, and there's an opportunity for them to either entertain a dialogue or make appropriate responses prior to the hearing. So to the applicant, is there any opposition to the continuation of this public hearing to coincide with the continuation of the previous public hearing?
I think it makes sense to do what you're saying, given that the stormwater is the linchpin, and if we could, especially in the next meeting, you know, focus on that, and hopefully we'll have addressed any comments that do come up from the review of that. So I don't see a problem there.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion from the commissioners to continue this until the June 23rd meeting at 7 p.m.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. We would now move on to number 6, which is a public hearing. And although we don't show a DEP file number, it's been represented that this public hearing does have a DEP file number.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the file number is 2517.
It's on my agenda.
No, I know, but I think when I mentioned that, Patty, Mark had indicated that public hearings 6, 7, and 8 all have DEP file numbers. They just weren't put on the
They
agenda.
just came in yesterday, Patty.
I got it. Okay. Oh, that's why. All right.
Yeah.
So this is a notice of intent of Ram Fons Corner Development LLC, wishing to construct a portion of a parking lot, grading and utilities in the buffer zone on land located at map 68 lots 33 and 34, and that's at 461 Fons, I'm sorry, 479 Fons Corner Road. I got myself confused there. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Again, on behalf of the applicant.
Again, Jonathan Schuster, Oxbow Associates. And I do believe that representative from Silva Engineering is on if there are questions about the specific design on this lot. And I believe Zach is still on the line if there are remaining questions about the stormwater, although I feel like we've covered that ground. To start off, if Mike, if you could go to page 2 or sheet 2, I'll just very, very briefly talk about the existing conditions on the site. There's an existing dwelling to be raised that is outside the buffer zone, and a very, very decrepit barn, or I don't even know what it is. It's very rough. That's actually in the buffer zone to be raised. You can see that there. And just one thing of note that you may be interested in seeing is you can actually see where the historic cart road is. It doesn't, and in this part of the site, it almost lines up perfectly with the wetland crossing that has been designed. But if you can see flag F19 and E21, that's actually the historic cart road crossing the site. So for the most part, the wetland crossing we talked about earlier in lot 4 is right on top of that. Great. So yeah, the site, again, it's kind of a similar site in a way. Just a lot of historic use, some agricultural use, but yeah, you had multiple dwellings, a barn, and now it's a bit overgrown, a lot of scrub, and much of that scrub is invasives, you know, a heavy load of multiflora rose, a lot of Lonicera. But if we can go now to the sheet you were on before, I believe that was 5, or which one was it? Yeah, that works. So there's a Dunkin' Donuts proposed here, and as you can see, the entrance is off of that lot 4 main entrance to the complex. And as you can see, the Dunkin' Donuts building is not within the 100-foot buffer. So we're talking purely the novel impervious arises from the parking lot. And that amounts to 4,776 net increased square feet of impervious. And as I said before, but I'll say it again, it's a comprehensive drainage system that's going to be gravity fed to the detention basins we discussed earlier for the lot 4 filing. So as you can see, there is some more intensive grading to the east towards the wetland, culminating in a retaining wall there. And I believe we do have a detail on that wall for review. But for the most part, we're just talking about these buffer zone impacts, and there is an existing structure in that vicinity, and we do intend to fully address any runoff issues from here. We are proposing erosion control. I think if you scroll down, there's an erosion control plan, if I recall, perhaps. Maybe we include that. I think there was a comprehensive erosion control plan in the lot 4 filing amongst those 20 sheets.
Yeah, I think that's where it was.
Yeah, this is just so many sheets going everywhere, so you have to bear with me. I guess I'll be quiet now, and I'll open it up to your questions if the chair agrees.
I would agree. Mark, have you had a chance to review the application in this instance, and do you have any comments or concerns that you would like?
Yes, I have, not to be redundant, but I think my comments are consistent with the previous public hearing associated with the recreational marijuana facility. I mean, it's a commercial development on a disturbed agricultural site with derelict buildings and the like. I think they've done as good a job as they can in their proposed commercial development here, that being a Dunkin' Donuts, which has some different traffic elements to it than a recreational marijuana facility, drive-through elements and required parking and the like. They have tried to stay as far away from the wetland as they possibly can. Their grading that they're proposing to the east, which is a relatively steep slope, does have a retaining wall, which is offset from the wetland line. It's not right up against it. And again, site drainage here is dependent on site drainage on the original amended request for amended order. So my recommendation to the commission would be, again, to continue this until we close, until June 23rd, when I anticipate we would have the opportunity to close out the stormwater discussion.
Thank you, Mark. Does any of the commissioners have questions that they would like to have the applicants, engineers, and representatives address this evening?
Mike, it's Joe Burke. I'd like to make a comment.
Certainly.
The question I have, and this may be more the building department rather than conservation, but you have two potentially very busy traffic areas that are next door to each other. And I could just picture people going to the marijuana installation, then going back on Fons Corner Road, go to Dunkin' Donuts, and then back, or vice versa. It would seem that it might be advisable, if it's not already there, to have some sort of a loop where you can access one to the other without going back on Fons Corner Road and creating a traffic jam between the two entities. That's the comment.
Thank you, Joe. Do you have any response to Dr. Burke's comments?
Yeah, so if you recall lot one, there was basically a throughway, that there was a back entry / exit to the recreational marijuana facility onto that access road off of Fons Corner. So I believe that someone wanted to patronize both establishments, they could do so in their vehicle without getting back on Fons Corner Road, is my understanding. Yeah, that's perfect. That shows the loop there and the connectivity.
So they'd be somewhat like further down on Fons Corner Mall Road, you can go to all those businesses in the back road instead of having to go onto Fons Corner.
Good point.
Lowe's and that plaza is connected to, where they have Best Buy, etc. You can almost travel right down to the 99 restaurant area, going through the back roads. Well, you kind of heard our concerns relative going back to the linchpin. So I think we have the same issue as we did in the previous. Perhaps it's in the best interest to continue this as well until we've had a chance for Mr. Raposo's report to be in your hands and for your response to that report. So that again would be on June 23rd. Is there any objection to that?
We don't object to that. I think it's sensible, if that's the will of the commission, to wait till you have that comprehensive response.
I think it is probably on our part so that we have all of the data in front of us. And I appreciate your cooperation in that respect. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing until our June 2020 meeting at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. So we're moving on now to number 7, which is a public hearing with the DEP file of, it's 15. What is that one, Mark?
That file number is 15-2516. And again, this is a correction. It's Pascamanset Land Company LLC, not the Ram Fawns Corner.
Correct. So this is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2516. It's a notice of intent for Pascamanset Land Co. Inc., who wishes to construct a portion of a parking lot, grading and utilities on land located at map 68, lots 33 and 34 at 461 and 479 Fawn Corner Road. Entertain a motion to waive read the readings.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. And on behalf of the applicant.
Again, Jonathan Schuster, Oxbow Associates, and I'll just run through this. It's going to be kind of not too, well, don't want to repeat too much, but could we start at sheet 3, and I'll just very briefly run through the existing conditions. There are 3 existing structures on the site to be raised. So you could see this kind of gives you a sense of all the existing structures and all these different lots. But there at the bottom of the screen, you can see those 2 that are positioned closer to the road, and then one in the rear. Actually, all of them are outside buffer zone. And now if you can go to the next page, proposing an office building outside the buffer zone. Really, the only buffer zone impacts that we're talking about are, again, the parking and everything associated with that in the outer area of the buffer zone. That amounts to 7,222 square feet of net increase in impervious on the lot. And again, we're dealing with a comprehensive stormwater system that through gravity will bring runoff to those detention basins on lot 4 that we already discussed. Another disturbed site with a varied history of land use. There are some larger trees here and there, but by and large, we're either dealing with scrub or overgrown fields or young growth forests. And if you look to the east of the development there in the buffer zone, we are seeing that the parking lot ends with a little bit of steep grading, similar to the last filing, with a retaining wall at the 15-foot buffer to the wetlands. So trying to be as respectful as possible, stay back from that, but accommodate the parking associated with the structure. And with that, I'll turn it over for any questions you may have.
Mark, again, I think you were taking lead on it from a staff.
Yes. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, again, not to reiterate, it's basically the same comments that I've made on the previous public hearings. I do want to make a note about the 15-foot no activity buffer. I think that's kind of causal to the steep grading. So I think they're trying as best they can to respect some distance between the development and the wetland. Again, it's a small area of development that's in buffer zone. It's parking and some parking islands and some utilities. Again, it is tied directly to the amended order, which is file 152478, which we discussed earlier. And I would again recommend the commission continue this hearing until we close out the stormwater issues, outstanding stormwater issues.
Thank you, Mark. Any commissioner with a question at this time? Is there anyone in the audience who wants to be heard on this application? Hearing none, what I will suggest is that we have a motion to continue this public hearing to the next public hearing, which is June 23rd, 2020 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposition? That'll pass unanimously, and I want to thank you, Jonathan. You did exactly what I asked you to do. You did the same ground over and over again. That's pretty remarkable, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Tried my best.
You did a good job. All right.
Thanks.
Our next public hearing, number 8, is what's the file number for that, Mark?
15-2518.
Okay, thank you. We have a number 8, public hearing, file 15-2518, notice of intent for Eversource to install and maintain 2 gas mains in the state road alignment between 262 and 282 State Road and adjacent to the Pascagoula River. And I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? No opposition. That passes unanimously. And on behalf of the applicant.
Hi, thank you. This is Becky Weissman with SWCA Environmental. I am representing Eversource. I am here with Jen Bottaro, who is the environmental permitting specialist with Eversource, and Sean Berthium, who is the natural gas engineer with Eversource. And I might actually wish to share my screen. If that's possible?
Sure. More than possible.
All right. So do I just need to request it, or?
That's a technical question.
Okay. Let me know if you can see this.
I can see it.
Okay.
I got it.
All right. So just to give you sort of a layout for where this is Route 6. Right here is Champion Terrace. Right around this location, I don't know if you can see my mouse as well, but right around this location is the Midas building. The Pascagoula River is right here. And on the west side of the Pascagoula River, here is the a small park area that's owned by the town along the river. It's kind of I think it's the Pascagoula River Conservation Area. So Eversource is proposing to install a new natural gas district regulator at Champion Terrace. The purpose of the project is to provide a redundant source of natural gas to Eversource's existing distribution system in the region. As part of this, to connect the proposed district regulator to the existing system, Eversource is going to install an 8-inch plastic natural gas main from the district regulator on Champion Terrace and along Route 6 across the Pascagoula River, and it's going to tie into an existing stub and valve on the west side of the Pascagoula River. At the same time, they are going to install a new 12-inch plastic main, basically parallel to that existing or that proposed 8-inch main. And that new 12-inch main will allow them to retire their existing 8-inch cast iron pipe that's you can see down here on I guess that's the eastbound side of Route 6. So they'll be able to retire that older cast iron pipe. The district regulator itself is located outside of any jurisdictional resource areas, but the gas mains are proposed within the resource areas associated with the Pascagoula River. And I'm going to pull up a close-up of this area on an aerial background. So the pipes are going to span the river, and work is associated then with in resource areas associated with the river, including the riverfront area and the 100-year floodplain of the river. Eversource is going to avoid any in-stream work by actually spanning the river. So what they're going to do is they are going to install some concrete supports that are going to be flush with the ground, so there's not going to be any impact associated with those concrete supports to any compensatory flood or to any flood storage capacity. So those supports will be installed flush with the ground, and that those will support the pipes as they span the river parallel to the existing bridge, that bridge crossing. And this will avoid any work within the resource areas bank or land underwater associated with these new natural gas mains. There will be work, though, that's temporary within the 200-foot riverfront area and bordering land subject to flooding. That work will be within the existing and adjacent to the existing roadway associated with Route 6. So there will be open trenching within the roadway, and you can see the area of open trenching is kind of in this diagonal hatching. And then on the north side of the open trench will be where they temporarily stockpile soils. All work that, except for at the crossing itself, all work is proposed to each section of trenching will be closed at the end of each day, is what they are anticipating, and then there will be they'll be closed and they'll be restored with some temporary paving. At the end of the entire project, the travel lane that the pipes will be located in will be paved. That's kind of subject to, they do need some DOT permits as well as street opening permit with the town, but so the actual paving regime will depend upon what comes out of those permits, but that is what they anticipate at this time. No permanent impacts to any flood storage capacity of this area. No permanent impacts to the 200-foot riverfront area. And we do show erosion and sedimentation controls around. It's kind of hard to see on this picture, but both adjacent to the bank is a proposed line of silt fence and straw bales, and along where they will be doing any spoil storage will be straw wattles. They are requesting permission to use a laydown area within this open space land just on a temporary basis, primarily for storing pipe. If they require this area for any soil stockpiling, any of those stockpiles will also be surrounded by erosion control barriers. And I think that is pretty much it. So I'm open to any questions you might have.
Thank you. Mark, were you on this one or was this Mike?
No, this is me.
Okay.
Simply put, we see this as a necessary maintenance and upgrade of gas line infrastructure. I concur with the presentation that any impacts will be temporary. They have avoided permanent impacts to the greatest degree possible. There is some work in buffer zone. They will be doing a river crossing. Most of the work is in travelway, so it's not like they're going over virgin land. And I think they've done a really good job. I think it's necessary. It's it's gas line infrastructure which needs to be maintained and upgraded for demand and for public safety. So I would recommend approval with conditions.
Thank you, Mark. Do any commissioners have any questions of this applicant?
No.
No.
Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Could I have a motion for a
Yep.
standard order of conditions according to the plan submitted?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're moving on to our items for discussion. Do we have any bills today?
No, we don't, Mr. Chair.
That's good. Do we have this is approval of use of the Wetlands Protection Fund conservation receipts for additional conservation officer hours. And I think that's a wise use of the money.
Yeah, I should give you some background on this. As I think the commission knows, I'm going to be leaving. My last day will be July 15th. And I'll be taking vacation time. My official retirement date is September 1st, but I'm going to be taking vacation time. So in the interim, through for 4 Fridays in June, and then into the end of July and into August, I have proposed that we use Conservation Receipts Fund to be able to supplement Mark's hours. Mark has agreed to supplement to taking on the extra hours so that we have coverage during that time in the office. I read the enabling legislation, and in the enabling legislation indicates that the use of the conservation receipt funds can clearly be used for staff or for paying for staff purposes. But there are 2 approvals that I think are necessary. One is from the town administrator, and I have sent Sean McInnes an email stating that he should approve the use of the conservation receipt funds, and also the Conservation Commission should approve the use of the conservation receipt funds for the purpose of paying for Mark's additional hours. We have plenty of money in the conservation receipts fund to be able to cover the time. So this is kind of a belts and suspenders sort of thing. The way I read it, I think it's probably prudent for the commission to vote to authorize the use of the conservation receipt funds for the purpose of paying our conservation officer some additional hours to cover in the interim.
Great explanation. I hate the fact that you're leaving, but it's a great explanation. And I think it's a wise use of the funds, because I think, Mark, the extra hours will allow you to help us, help the public, as both you and Mike have done to date. And without that, I think we'd be floundering, to be honest with you. We'd be unable to keep up with the demand. So I think it's a great use of funds, but I'll entertain any comments contrary to that. Well, good, there aren't any. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the use of Wetlands Protection Fund for additional conservation officer hours.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. C, FAA termination of lease, ETFANE-04-L-00015- Lucy Little Road. I have no idea what I just said. Absolutely no idea.
This is a commission may recall that about a year or so ago, the FAA abandoned an outer marker site that used to be used for the New Bedford Airport that was located on Conservation Commission property. They were actually leasing a portion of the Concom property on Lucy Little Road for the purposes of this outer bound marker. GPS technology has made that obsolete. And about a year or a year and a half ago, they abandoned the site, tore down the structures, and restored the site. I got a letter a couple weeks ago stating that they were going to be terminating their lease. And we were getting $100 a year, so it's not exactly going to kill us. So this is just a formality that the FAA has indicated that they're formally terminating their lease with the town. So the commission doesn't have to do anything. I just notification.
Oh, good. I don't like to do anything, so that's a good thing.
This one's easy.
So now we have D, the enforcement update.
Well, the commissioners requested 2 meetings ago to get an enforcement update, and given the craziness of the last hearing, it was put off until this meeting. So we're back here to discuss the issues. We currently have 30 listed enforcement actions. More than half of them have been closed and have been satisfied. We have several that are outstanding or in process. And I could go over each one of them. That would probably be very boring. The problematic ones, I will if you want, but the problematic ones are some of the more recent ones. I think off the top, 82 Merrimack Street, the commission voted 2 meetings ago to issue a second enforcement order requiring that they respond by in 30 days, which based on the certified mail, 30 days was today. Last evening, we received via email a notice of intent filing, which is okay. It's missing some critical information. I think we need to, basically, it's a wetland delineation on a disturbed site, and there are no data sheets available to support the delineation, which forces either Mike or myself to go out there and do the delineation again to review whether what's on the plan is accurate or not. I had discussions with Site Tech, and I said, as far as I'm concerned, this is complete filing. This needs data sheets. The delineator is notorious for not doing data sheets. And I said, we need them. We're not going to do your work. So that's where we stand with that one right now. Mike and I were talking about how we handle this. Mike is taking the good cop role. I'm taking the bad cop role, I think. They did respond as in time. It was the 11th hour, but they did respond in time. But this is an individual who has ignored several letters, has ignored a previous enforcement letter, and we did say we would send this to council for action. Mike took a kind of interesting approach, which I think is a good one, in that instead of us writing another letter, maybe we should turn it over to town council and have them write a letter indicating that what was done was insufficient. Did I get that right, Mike?
Yeah, that we've done that, I believe, in the past, where we've had sort of a intransigent, a violator, and rather than take it directly to court, which costs the town time and money, we the town council write a letter rather than have another enforcement order come from the Conservation Commission. Coming from town council, it carries that additional weight. And so I might suggest, I'll see if I have to go through process for getting approval for use of town council and things like that. And they're also very busy with the COVID, the COVID crisis and whatnot. But I think that's something that we should consider, and having the town council write a letter stating, you've got to finalize this, or we will be going to court. And so, just wanted to see what the commission's thought of that approach.
I have,
Go ahead, Pam.
a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Patty.
Oh, okay, sorry. Just wanted to know, are there any, daily or weekly fees associated that can be charged to this particular, for not completing?
Well, they have filed an after the fact notice of intent. So there is an additional $500 fee associated with that per violation. We do have non-criminal disposition. We've never used it, but we do have that ability in our bylaw. And like I said, we've never used it before. We've never had to. We've been able to get the enforcement, completed otherwise.
My question is, I wonder if we do, I think it's a good idea to ask town council to send a letter, but to perhaps reference that might be something that we would look at.
We can certainly
In
do that.
the letter the last letter we sent, is that there are daily fines that can run up to $1,000 a day or something like that.
It's $2,500 a day. Is a separate violation.
That's under the state. I mean, that really do that, but that's what the law allows for. And I think under the bylaw, what is it, 300 a day?
200. It's 200, I believe, under the bylaw.
But there are fees that we, in my time in Dartmouth, never, I've never seen it done. I will say, just as a sidebar, in Plymouth, where I live, when they issue an enforcement order, they issue a ticket. You got to go to court, pay it. That's another method. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just another way of doing it.
I just think that sometimes people ignore everything that we, any letter that we send because there doesn't seem to be any consequence.
I would agree with that.
And
those cases.
We need to think about that because I think valuable resources are being spent. Your time, the town's time, and it just seems to me that there has to be some consequences. Now, I'm not saying that those are the consequences, but I think we might begin to refer to those as potential consequences and consider anything else for the future so that we can move some of these recalcitrant people along in the process.
Patty, I'm totally in agreement with you, and it is an issue that I think systemically we have to address. And so, Mark, when I hear you say Plymouth doesn't mess around with a bunch of letters, here's your letter, here's your ticket, go to court and explain to the judge why you did what you did. I got to tell you, there's some serious merit to that.
Yeah.
It seems like,
there is.
We're sitting around debating it. Our time is valuable too, in addition to everybody else's, and it comes up again and again and again. And, it reminds me of the little fable about the boy that cried wolf. You keep sending letters, and people say all they do is send letters.
Right.
It doesn't matter. But when you have to go to court, then it matters. When
and potentially pay a fine.
Pay a fine and pay somebody to represent you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a couple of hours of an attorney's time, they could have fixed the problem.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think there's a system. I would agree with you that there's a systemic issue here that we keep chasing these people, and I think there has to be some sort of process and procedure so that it kind of pinches a little bit and gets them moving.
I agree, and I like what I heard about Plymouth. I mean, maybe one shot across the bow. You know what I mean? Give them a letter saying, hey, you got 30 days. And I think what I would do in that letter, original letter, is say, we will contact town council if you don't do anything. And town council will just go ahead and file in court. So we're done with you, man. You now go to describe that, whatever you've done, you go describe that to a judge and explain to the judge why you've disregarded the order. And
If I could make a suggestion, I'm very good friends with the conservation agent in Plymouth. Let me speak to him and let me get, I've always had to get people out of trouble. So I usually see it from the back end. Let me get the procedure down, and I'll send it. I'll get it for you folks, and we can discuss it. You know, I'm not giving it its proper due. I'm just saying that this is the way, you know, another town does it. Let me see what their procedural thing is, and we can take a look at it.
I think
okay,
that's
I
good.
really would like that because
I think that makes sense.
You know,
If I could, Mark, I agree with you, and Mike, I also agree with what you said. Each case is on a separate individual basis. You give them one shot across the, and if nothing happens, then you gave them their opportunity, and then we have to do what we have to do. And I think the information that Mark obtains from Plymouth would be of great assistance to us, instead of just continually sending letters, which they're going to disregard because they don't think anything we would say or do would have any teeth to it. But Mike, as long as I've been on the board, you've always given the courtesy of a shot across the bow. You've always done that. And I think that is the appropriate and proper thing to do. But after you've extended that courtesy, we have to do what we have to do. And I think as I'm repeating myself, the information that Mark will obtain from Plymouth, I think would help us in our next move after the first shot across the bow.
okay, so now let's get back to Merrimack Street. And I'm thinking out loud here, but maybe this is the time we start to do something. If I understand it correctly, at the 11th hour, the recalcitrant property owner finally had an engineering firm submit, and the submission was inadequate. So now the question is, do we just immediately, I mean, what's Tony going to do? He's going to send, Anthony, I'm sorry. What's he going to do? He's going to send the same thing kind of letter we did, except he's going to threaten to go to court. So why are we going to pay to have that letter sent? Let's just say, you know, I would think we would send a letter saying your submission was inadequate. It doesn't come to the level necessary for any filing to be acted upon. So it's the same as disregarding us. With this letter, we're sending notice to town council to begin the actions in court. And if, you know, let's go. Let's gloves off. What's Tony going to say? Anthony's going to say, I'm going to file suit against you. And he's going to say, go ahead. That's what the commission's been threatening all along. So I think we just say we're doing it. Let's do it.
I agree with you, Mike. This last minute submission, there's no doubt about it in my mind. It was submitted with full knowledge that it was faulty, that it was deficient, it didn't have the data sheet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they did it in order to say, look, we've told the problem, we're doing this, but to do it in the 11th hour with full knowledge that it wasn't the appropriate filing, who's kidding who here?
But I request that we hear from the good cop on this.
I think it's a good idea to put some teeth into it at this point. The deficiency in this application was a lazy wetland delineation, if you ask me. There was no data sheets that were submitted. There was an engineering plan that was submitted, so there was progress, you know, in my mind. You know, it's up to the commission. Perhaps we should start instituting Plymouth's, you know, procedure. I think that's a good idea. You save some people money, and it'll light a fire under them.
I think this is, we've given this fellow warnings. Okay,
We sure have.
We really haven't even used the Plymouth procedure. And if I'm hearing it correctly, the application was woefully deficient. So it wasn't an application.
Not woefully. No, not woefully.
Woefully, it's deficient.
It is deficient, but
So is that a filing? Is that a real application? No,
No,
it's not.
no.
incomplete.
So, you know, truthfully, the violation exists. The violation has existed. The remedy would really be to restore. Okay, that's the remedy. for some reason, we're really nice and say, but you can also try to do an after the fact. Okay?
The proposal is restoration.
And that's the proposal.
Yeah.
I mean, we just do it. We just call it the way it is. Get a court order, get a fine implemented, and maybe the fellow will finally stop wanting to pay money for nothing and put money into replicate, to do restoration.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think we're perhaps a little too nice to some people that perhaps, in our efforts to always be fair. But I think there are some people who are just going to use that and stall. And I think it's just enough time. We need a more systemic approach to these types of people so that we can light the fire under them and stop spending time. We need a process and procedure. If within a certain amount of time we don't get this, then we go to this. And it really should be more formalized.
I agree. I think we should, in a subsequent meeting, address the issue of making new policy, but for this particular violation, I'm all in favor of notifying them that time's up. Your filing was inadequate. It doesn't rise to a filing. Didn't include, tell them exactly what the deficiencies are. Okay, we've now turned this over to town council.
Yeah.
I mean, then it's up to Anthony to do something, or maybe probably Brian, and maybe they can routinize once we get our process. So they can handle these kinds of things, not necessarily on an hourly basis, but some other way, because we're going to give them. I don't know. I'm speaking off the top of my head, but to me, writing letters and you don't take action, the letters get disregarded.
Yeah.
You can only threaten once. Once you've made the threat, you better act on it.
It's like raising children.
And they're going to test you, and you better be willing to come down with the punishment.
You better give them their time out.
You got it.
So, because they will learn that you're not serious. And that's why I think, as we move forward, we need to develop a more systematic approach to these things. But in the interim, I think we need to do something with this particular application right away. And
So I would suggest that what we do is we find out from town administrator, we want to send this person this letter and telling them we're turning this over to Anthony to go ahead and file. So we get permission for that before we send the letter, because I don't want to say that and then we can't. Because
then we have to do that.
Right.
Okay. But I think, in the context of the bigger picture, I think the town administrator should be told, we need to put teeth in this. We keep sending letters and people disregard us. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's a waste of our time. And we tend to sit and watch these things. It's, month after month, sometimes year after year. And it just seems as though we need to be a little more systematic.
Yeah, and consistent in the terms of application. So it's not going to be up for debate. Did that letter go out? Yes. Did we get the response? No. Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah.
Move through
Well,
the process. Because
with there should be fees. I mean, there should be fees associated with that.
I'm all for that. They're definitely.
Because once they figure that out, but I think we have to tell them that that's what's coming.
Well, we should have a canned first letter, which tells them point blank, these are the fines, these are the legal fees, these are this is what you're going to pay if you don't comply. And this will be the only opportunity you have to avoid us turning it over to town council. Because when that deadline comes, we're turning it over to town council.
And we don't want to hear your excuses.
And don't bother us.
Yeah, don't bother.
And for some of these people, that's going to mean, because, it's going to mean you got to pay somebody to represent them.
Right.
And they don't get that money back, even if they're right.
Right.
Which they
Right.
So if I'm hearing everybody correctly, we could beat this for another hour. Staff needs to talk to town administrator about authorizing bringing Anthony in or Brian. We prepare a letter to them indicating, to Almeida, indicating that the NOI was
Incomplete.
and that we're turning this over to town council.
Legal action.
Authorization, and then this letter. And Mike, you and I can work on the language on that letter.
Exactly. And then, then I think we need to address with town, not for the moment, this is Merrimack as a standalone, but saying, this is the way we want to handle it from now on. We got to have a sit down and get that done, because this is ludicrous to send them 2-3 letters, wait a year and a half before they do anything.
Yep.
Just ludicrous.
Yep.
It took them no time at all for the violation. Shouldn't take them any time at all to do the restoration.
And Mark and I had discussed a enforcement protocol several months ago, and I think that's something that should be developed.
I think I still have the draft.
Yeah, Mark and I have recognized this issue, and so, we have a draft that Mark and I worked on. We can submit that to the commission for comment, and I agree, things need to be more formalized with more teeth.
Yep.
Sharp teeth.
Now, Mark, are there any other enforcement?
I'm going to go over a couple more, just points of interest. We had Aurelio Amaral on 27 Round Hill Road. He had the barn that was built right up against the wetland. That went to Anthony. They have removed the barn, but the slab still remains on the ground. Apparently, there was a slab there before. So staff is looking into with Anthony whether the slab has to come out under the enforcement order or not. We have not gotten an answer to that yet, have we, Mike?
No, we haven't. I spoke with Brian Cruz, Assistant Town Council, about this, and there was a zoning action taken against him, and the judge required him to remove the structure. He did remove the structure. That was in violation of both zoning and wetlands, and so the structure has been removed, and some debris has been removed out of the site. The violator went to court and complained to the judge that he did not have the financial wherewithal to be able to remove the slab. And so the judge required that he show up, Mr. Emerald, show up and prove that he did not have the wherewithal to be able to remove the slab. And so the question for the Conservation Commission, and this came from Town Council, how much of an enforcement priority would the slab be? It's basically a small shed kind of slab that's about 20, 30 feet away from the wetland. And so I have not heard back from Brian Cruz. I believe it was about a week and a half ago they were supposed to be back in court. And so I'd like to get an update from Brian to see what the judge actually said. But the question for the commission is, the structure, which was pretty significant, has been removed, but the slab remains.
Well, let me ask you a question. The slab, was that the footprint of the building?
Yes.
Well, if that building was very significant and that was a big problem for us, then the slab's a problem. Because I don't care about what's up in the air.
Right.
So from our standpoint, it is the slab.
The enforcement order read, the structure shall be removed.
Yeah, well,
I think that's inclusive. I think that my personal feeling is that the slab is part of the structure.
Agreed. I agree with you, Patty. Be the first time today.
It's the first time today. But I think that's to me part and parcel of the structure. And the only fly in the ointment in that argument would be, because if I heard it correctly, the argument that was made is, well, there was an existing slab there and I just replaced it. Well, what proof do we have there was an existing slab there, number one? Number two, how long? Because if you tear out something which is non-conforming, you may not have the right to rebuild it. You do on the zoning, if it's damaged, you can rebuild. But if you rip it up yourself, you don't get to put it back. You got to get a variance. Same thing, I think, for us. If I rip up something which is in the wetlands, I don't get to put something back in without.
Right.
And I don't think we should have to specify, with structure that it includes the slab. I think that should be understood. Maybe.
Well, that was a specific question from town council.
It includes that, the entire, it's what he put in, that's the structure. And if that's not completely crystal clear, I think it should be, then why not put it to them to do the research? Then what does the statute say? What do the case laws say? But I think it would be the height of, to me, irrationality to say we have to specify each component of the structure to define the structure. What did you put in there, fellow? It's the whole thing, right? You put the slab in, get it the hell out. That's sophistry to say, well, you didn't tell me to take the slab out. Well, how'd you build the structure? It's on the slab, right? So the slab's part of the structure.
Yeah, I think that just, and if there was an existing prior decrepit slab that he replaced, I just don't care.
Yeah, well,
I don't think that's the case.
You can't replace it.
And you can't, and so, but I think if you say, what he's saying is that there was one, well, fine, I don't care. You put the second one in, so you put it in, so you take it out.
You'd say that, to me, that would only be an argument if you're trying to, through the process of a request for from up. You tell us, well, there was one there before, so I'm not really adding anything. We might buy that argument in the normal course. I mean, we just heard from one of the applicants with all those things about how they're tearing things down and this is already existing. So we take it into account, but it doesn't give them automatic right to do it.
No, because he needed a permit to replace the slab.
Yes, he did.
So he didn't get it, so he's got to take it out.
That's my view.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to preface this one by saying COVID has certainly gotten in the way, but we have Sergio Mazzo, Potomska Road. The commission issued an order of conditions back in August of 2019. So he's certainly within his 3 years. We probably check on status with that one. He has a standing order right now, so I don't have anything to add on that. Medeiros, Ventura Drive, that's the one we referred to with the Potomska Land Company things. That one was completed and looks fine. Another one that's really outstanding and problematic is Joe Seamus, 115 Sharp Street. We got a complaint that they were cutting trees along the brook, went down and the complaint was valid. Make a long story short, they were supposed to have hired site tech to delineate on-site resources, file a letter of intent. This dates back to probably January of 2020. I spoke with Corey Medeiros at Site Tech. They have yet to sign a contract. As a matter of fact,
over to Anthony.
So this is one that's going about 4 months, and this is the classic of what we were talking about.
Right.
I'm going to lean on Corey on this one because I know who it is, and we'll see if we can kick them into gear.
I think that one is another letter, though.
No, I just turn it over to Anthony. Send him the letter we sent saying, hey, time's up. We turned it over to town council. It's now in legal hands. It's a court issue. Done. Yeah. I'm not going to put up with the bullshit of, well, my dog ate my homework, and no, too bad. Too bad. You had more than enough time to do what you should do. And you know what? you didn't do it because you didn't want to do it. You didn't feel compelled to do it. You didn't want to spend the money to do it. Well, now you're going to spend the money. Town council.
Right.
Okay, duly noted.
Because we're doing enforcement for the rest of our lives if we don't put teeth in this. People are going to disregard us. Believe me, you start enforcing it, you start going to court, you start having them spend money, word gets, don't mess around with them. You're going to go to court.
Absolutely, Mike. There is a benefit of going out and doing it after the first shot across the bow. I keep on using that. Is that the word will get on the street, don't mess. Because if you do, it's going to cost money and time. I agree, Mike. Enough is.
Oh, go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
No, I'm done, Pat. Thank
you. The other thing is that as we move towards building on sites that have more and more sites that have resource areas, violations are going to increase in the future. So we need to have a systematic approach to this and stick to it very clearly, because what you say is right. We're going to be doing enforcement orders all over the place. We're going to be spending a whole lot of staff time doing that, and so I think we just kick it right up the ladder.
Agreed. Duly noted. The next one of concern is Daniel Meadow, 33 Westwood Drive. Same stuff. I went out, did a site visit based on an anonymous complaint, issued a cease and desist. In a certified letter, I required an after-the-fact notice of intent by June 1st. None has been received as of June 9th.
Turn it over to Anthony. I'm serious.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm serious. And you know what? Until we start, he may not have to do much, because once people realize it's turned over, they'll try like hell to avoid having to go to court.
I think that's right. And I think if we develop, maybe with Anthony, some sort of standard letter that goes out to all of these folks, it shouldn't require much effort on his part.
Right. So to me, we've given time. It's not like we just surprised them. The surprise is they didn't do what they promised. That's the surprise. So what's happening next should be no surprise.
Right.
Those are the only ones that I think are really problematic. I mean, there are some others, but Kingfisher, Francis, those are more complex and ongoing. So, and they multi-jurisdictional. So, at this point, I think that suffices. That's a boatload of work for us over the next few weeks to get the stuff together and get Anthony on the stick on these.
Well, I do have one other to add, and it's Round Hill. We had that major that major cutting at Round Hill, and that one we had just put off because of the shutdown. But it's time to pick that one up. What I suggest is we're gonna have to dust off the enforcement letter, and I plan to work directly with the supervisor at Round Hill, and with him, and so I think I'll keep the commission up to date on that one. I think they will comply. So I will talk to Bill Griffin at Round Hill, do a site visit, and we've already informed them of what they need. But I think we need to force that one. But I'll provide the commission with an update on that one. I'll take the lead on that one more.
Have we sent an enforcement letter, Mike? Did we, I can't remember now. Did we send an enforcement letter?
Yeah, we sent a letter. I believe we.
Enforcement letter?
I think we were supposed to send a letter, and then somehow it didn't happen the week it was supposed to happen, is my recollection.
I don't know. I'd have to look back, Patty. I don't know.
So I think it was postponed for some reason because of all this stuff going on. But I think we need to make sure that something's been sent in any case, just to have it on paper.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I also want to say, this is what we have to be careful, Mike. Systemically, our process has to be applied. So it doesn't matter if they're Round Hill and they're nice guys and they're going to do it. It goes to Anthony.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you know what? they shouldn't be treated any differently than Mr. Costello or Mr. Amaral or, no, they get
No.
treated the same way. You get one shot across the bow, you don't do it, you go to court.
Yep.
They got plenty of money. They charge enough money for condominium
Yeah,
fees.
But they
can
do.
afford legal counsel. They'll probably bring somebody from Minced Levin at $1,200 an hour, but they'll bring somebody. All right.
Even so, I think it makes sense to be fair and be systematic in our approach,
Yeah.
And consistent.
consistent.
I don't want to have, let me talk to them. They're not, no, we don't. Let's stop talking. That's what gets us into trouble.
Yeah, I think when you're dealing in enforcement, familiar gets very dangerous.
Yes, it does.
You know, enforcement is enforcement. It's an ugly business. If you don't want to be there, don't do it.
Exactly right. I mean, so what I would say is if we sent the letter and they haven't done anything, that goes to Anthony too.
But I'm not sure the letter went out. I
I have to double check.
You have to do some back checking on that.
Because that's my recollection is there was some, I can't remember what it was, but we should check on that.
And you know what? If we didn't do it, then we get it done. And now they got some time. But you got to, if you want to talk to them, you tell them this will be the last letter you get from us. The chairman wants to send everything to Anthony if these letters don't get responded to, because he doesn't have to deal with this. He wants it to go to legal.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. You know what? I'm tired of dealing with them on an individual basis. It shouldn't be. When somebody violates and we give them an enforcement order, they all get treated the same. The criminals that they.
Yeah. I think the bottom line is we need to formalize our procedure.
Yes.
Consistent and formalize and consistent our
Because
procedure.
you deviate at your peril. I mean, that now you don't have a process anymore.
And I think it also makes sense that once we systemize our approach, that be known like everywhere. This is the new thing.
Well, I think what we can do is from now on, in that one shot across the bow,
Yep.
got to put language in. You will not get another letter from us other than the copy of the letter we're sending to town council.
Right.
To take enforcement action legally. That's it. That's it.
Yep.
And then they'll say, well, let's see what happens. And when they get, they get the summons and complaint, they'll know what happened.
Right.
And if that initial letter has a ticket, and it's a $200 ticket.
$500 ticket.
Well, we can only do what the bylaw says, Patty.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's not, is that just perfect?
Why stop at excess, Patty?
I think it's got a pinch. I think it's really got a pinch. Like, oh my God, I've got to pay $500. And so I better get moving on this because I'm still going to end up having to do it.
We got to do something about that because Patty's right. I mean, that's basically a parking ticket in Boston.
The parking ticket.
But they can be issued every day. And that's
Well,
what
We want to do that. But we don't want to do it, do we? Why do we want to issue something every
that's
day?
a pain.
It's
No,
a pain. Let's relook at that bylaw and see if maybe we need to.
But
Well,
look,
it's
Anthony
not
goes in, when they file a complaint, they're going to say violation, this starts, the penalty starts and continues until rectified. The court will order it. He's going to issue a summons and complaint, period. End of the story. They're going to see that. They're going to realize that the amount of money they pay us is completely in their hands. Get the job done and you stop it.
Or pay more.
Or keep paying because you're going to pay and you're going to have to restore it anyway.
You're going to have to restore it anyway.
So,
Just to point out, though, the non-criminal disposition is not a wetland bylaw. That's a general bylaw that was passed several years ago.
Okay. All right. All right. But
I'm sure that Anthony and his crew knows which language.
Right.
And all I'm saying is that I'm not inclined to engage in discussion that leads nowhere. So we're still talking about the same thing 6 months later.
Yeah.
They get the letter. They can come in with the stuff that they want to file if that's what they want to do. And I don't mind that discussion. But I'm not going to send them another reminder. We're not babysitters here.
No.
Okay? These are adults we're dealing with. And so for the most part, I'm inclined to tell them once. I only tell my kids once. I told them that a long time ago. I'll tell you once, the second time, you're not going to get another warning. It's going to happen.
Geez, I knew I screwed up someplace with Jake.
That's what you should have done, Richard. You know, that's why, you know, my kids are still, they still know that. They don't, there was, you know, if I was unclear, and I might revisit that if I was unclear, but I was seldom unclear. They knew exactly what we wanted, and we're seldom unclear. We tell them exactly what we want. And there's crickets for the most part, or, you know, pie crust promises, easily made, easily broken. They don't follow through. Why don't they follow through? No consequence. I'm making a consequence now. That's my legal. You know, you got your warning. You've been told what's going to happen. The rest is up to you. Comply or pay the penalty. I'm not going to talk to you again. There's nothing for me to say. What are you going to tell me? Another lie? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
To the court.
Yeah,
Call
talk to
it
the
the
judge. Talk to the judge.
Yeah. Because I don't think we should be dealing with it as much as we do.
No.
We need to put more teeth in it, but okay. I think that's the right way to go.
Hey, we got our marching orders. We got some stuff to do, so we'll get on it.
Well, but I think I hope that it will serve to lessen the number of hours and time spent with people who have no intention of remediation.
Mhm.
And, you know, you good folks, you know, the staff are constantly talking to these people, and they don't really necessarily, a lot of them have any intention of fixing the problem. And I think that's a waste of your very precious time.
I agree. And, you know, I would say one other thing. To me, for us not to enforce these things in a vigorous, consistent way is a disservice to the community and a disservice to the people who file before they take action. So
That is true.
We're encouraging people to ask forgiveness after the fact. I don't want to encourage that. I want to encourage people to follow the goddamn law.
Agree.
Right. Well, we, like Mark said, we
Silence, boy.
got some marching orders.
Got some marching orders. We'll get on it.
Well, and I think it's good that you developed a schedule of people that are in violation. Because I think, I know that half of them have remediated, but you know, the rest of them we need to get going.
Yeah.
To.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have, a year from now, with the revision and how we handle things, I bet we have markedly fewer enforcement orders, and those that come in get resolved fairly quickly. But anyway, with that being said, I have no further comments for tonight's meeting. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order? Seeing none, I'll
Just make one brief one on a good note.
Damn it, I thought I was going to get that done.
I'll be very brief. We have just completed the town, and Mike and I were largely involved with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Report, which went out. We have just finalized and completed the listening sessions, which was a requirement on the final report, which was on DCTV for the past week, maybe week and a half. The report has been submitted to the state, to EOEEA, and to MEMA, and we are just waiting for approval. The preliminary comments were very good, and what this will do is we'll make Dartmouth eligible for state grant money on this, under this new program for climate change remediation.
And I have one other good thing to bring up. Street boat ramp has been completed.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
That project was the biggest pain in
Oh my gosh.
for my entire career, next to the Round Hill fiasco by the park board. The Round Hill boat launch ramp was such a pain.
Yeah.
And it was completed on Friday. There's a little bit of cleanup work to do, but it's done. So once that cleanup work is done, I never want to hear about the Rutgers Street boat ramp ever again. Waterways can take it over, and I am never going to discuss it ever again for the rest of my life.
I'm going to petition the town to name it the Mike O'Reilly.
Yeah, I'm going to name it after me.
You're going to have to come out to the ceremony. So you might have to do one other
Thanks a
thing.
lot, Mark.
Then everybody will always call you, Mike.
I'll just put his cell phone number on the plaque.
Right, my address. So that's it for me.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Meeting adjourned.